Charlotte and I are Doorsteps, building partnerships of hope in Oxfordshire, connecting churches. You can read it. She does early years and family stuff, and that looks like some practical hands-on face-to-face singing songs in toddler groups with a guitar, and some networking and working with other practitioners, and then a really interesting new project around creating helping do referrals for provision for baby baskets and things like that. And I do young people. So I'll give you a little whistle stop of what we do with young people. Out of school, we have Find Your Fire, our flagship project, where the young people get an accreditation, which is worth about half a GCSE, which is what kids sit when they're 16 in England. That one is aimed at 13 to 14-year-olds, and then we carry some on as young leaders. So we recruit a new cohort every year. TBK is our faith group, so it's young people exploring the Christian way of life, and we focus a lot on community and focus a lot on what the Christian way of life would look like. So that could be around justice issues, and it could be around praying for things they see in the news. ERC started as a book club. Now it's a lot of creative writing and exploring ideas and concepts. And Doorsteps Youth is when ERC and TBK come together and celebrate Christmas parties or Easter. And then we've got some other young leaders from other projects. I'm not going to go into the acronyms because that would take forever. In school, we have Story Club, which is ERC minis, basically. I use a lot of the same curriculum, so I don't have to think things through twice. And then I've got one 16-year-old young leader from ERC who comes to support that, and he's been brilliant. Stick Club was going to be Forest School, except it turns out I'm not very good at Forest School. So it's a little bit of Forest School and backyard science, so Coke and Mentos, and things like making art out of leaves. We did a paper airplane competition recently that went down very well. And I've got 3 absolutely brilliant young leaders for that one, which make it all work because they help to create and hold the space. Library lessons, if you can help a kid to find the book they enjoy, you can help them to find reading easier. And if reading is easier, basically the entire rest of education tends to open up a lot. And it's a nice way of getting some little pastoral chats and a gentle way of meeting kids. And so then if they get referred in later, or a friend gets referred in, they've had a soft introduction. And then I'll do occasional pastoral sessions in school as well. So you'll be walking along and there's somebody having a little wobble, a little bit of a crisis. And if you're free, then you just go and help out. That's fun and interesting and useful. And then in the pipeline, we're hoping to do break time support work in a 2nd school, healthy friendships in a 3rd school, and then winter wellbeing workshops for 12 to 13-year-olds. And the hope would be that those kids might then also be the ones being referred in to Find Your Fire. So they might meet us in a gentler setting first. So when they get referred, they have a point of reference. So within all of that, sustainability and the youth groups, a lot of our young leaders and our top end young people are about to age out. So they are 16 to 18. We've got a lot who are 17 to 18 in their last year at school, and they are going to age out and go off to university. So that leaves a gap where the young leaders are. So projects like Stick Club work a lot better because of the young leaders, because they help to hold. We can take significantly more young people in because we've got this extra support. We couldn't recruit in the same way during the pandemic. So there's a gap of 13 to 16-year-olds. We didn't have the same space to build relationships, and they didn't roll in the natural and organic ways. So that means that age group is missing out. And it's not just within youth work, it's across the board in other areas as well. They've missed out on the natural drift into different things like the drama, or just different types of projects. So that's sustainability within the youth group. Within the youth workers, it's even harder. It's a longer lasting problem. It's been going on for longer. So there's a high turnover, average of 3 years in post, which means that a kid in a church youth group who starts at 11 and goes to 18 could have 3 different youth workers. And that becomes a problem so I've got one lovely wee soul who in year 7 was incredibly cheeky, life and soul of the party, absolute rabble rouser, and now is really, really unwell, selective mute in some contexts. And because I've known that young person for years, I see that and I can recognize that. But for a new youth worker coming into post, you wouldn't have seen the cheeky kid however many years ago. You'd just see the quiet one now, and it would be easy to think it was just a quiet kid. So a lot of the youth workers at this point are not as well trained or supported as they would have been 10 years ago, because there's been a lot of cuts to youth work training and youth work funding for years. So there's a high risk of burnout, because things like wellbeing, sustainability, and the skill sets, and actually knowing the boundaries and going, that doesn't work in this context, they're not being taught in the same way. SoulNet is a Christian Youth Workers Forum that I have the privilege to be able to take over the leadership of. And we had a turnover, so say we had 21 youth workers on the register pre-pandemic, 14 of those are no longer practicing youth work in Oxford, and it could be no longer practicing youth work at all. There's a bit of a blend, which is a huge turnover. And that's just within 3 years. So we are starting to rebuild SoulNet. There's a lot of appetite. We're looking at well-being this week, and there's a lot of enthusiasm for the group. And I think the more that we can build into youth workers and build that support, the better it is. So one of my young people, I started working with her when she was 11, she's now 21, and I caught up with her in the autumn, and her friendship group has a thing about everyone should have a therapist. Like, they just think everyone should have this in their lives. And she was trying to explain what a youth worker is, because none of her friends had any concept or any experience of having a youth worker, because the provision has been decimated so much. And she said, having a youth worker is kind of like that. And I loved that. I thought, yes, that is a role that is a great privilege to have, just journeying with young people. So the prayers would be for natural and organic recruitment for Doorsteps Youth Work as our older ones age out, that we can get new ones coming in, because it's good for them, it will help them, it will support them, and we want the groups to be able to carry on. Good community for Christian youth workers in Oxfordshire, and actually just across the country. And then investment in youth work and youth work training at a national level, which will help to underpin everything else. And that is all I have.